But now I'm going to move to talk to two of my best friends, Robin and Michael Tuohy. As I mentioned, Robin serves as our vice president of our support groups. Michael himself is a 22-year survivor with multiple myeloma. And I want to welcome them to the virtual stage here as we think together a little bit about what their experience has been. So, Robin, I have 5 questions for the two of you, and I know within the time frame that we have, we're going to have quick answers. But let me start with this. You know, people hear the word support group, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So maybe you could just start and explain to us, what is a support group?
So a support group, Dr. Joe, is a place that myeloma patients, their care partners can rely on locally as a place where people can talk and share the real world that you're living in with myeloma. And people understand. I usually say it's like Vegas, what's said in a support group stays in a support group. But we talk about things that we can bring back to the doctors and say, hey, I just heard about how I might be able to manage this side effect. And what do you think? Or maybe I'm relapsing and I've heard in my support group others are on XYZ treatment, but we know myeloma is so individual and different. How does that relate to me and my myeloma? So it helps us to learn more from each other and then to take that information back to our own doctors to find out, do I need to pay attention to this with my myeloma? Or maybe I don't, right?
Absolutely. And you've kind of, even started to answer question number 2, which is good, but maybe you can expand on a little bit more. Why would a patient go to a support group? As I know that sometimes that people have the stigma associated with it. Oh, I guess a support group means that I can't support myself, or I'm just going to be in a really sad room where everybody, kind of loves each other, but at the same time, they kind of, it's going to depress me more than uplift me. So maybe you can tell me a bit more about why, if there are patients listening in today who've not participated in a support group, well, why would someone go to a support group?
Yeah, I will go to Michael on this next, but for me, as the caregiver for 22 years now, it was resources, education, empowerment, and hope. And so when you feel like, okay, my loved one's been diagnosed with myeloma, and that stigma that you talked about, we think, oh, support, that makes me sound weak, or poor me, woe is me. It's so much the opposite. And when we started our support group in less than 6 months after Michael's being diagnosed, we actually didn't think about it then, but I find it interesting now that we named the group the Connecticut Multiple Myeloma Fighters Information Group. And I know that's a long title,
it's a long time,
but that's how we felt at the time. And so, Michael, I want to go to you, because how do you think about this?
Well, initially, I was not in favor of a support group. We were approached by the IMF about starting a support group. And I figured, I have my family, they're my support. But like Robin said, in the majority of myeloma support groups are information groups. And information is key, like knowledge is power, like Susie Dury always says. And patients that are in support groups do fare better. So I think it's really critical for patients to get involved in support groups, and you become a family. You're all fighting the same thing, and you're all really reaching out to each other. And like Robin said, learning about side effects and the latest therapies coming down the road. And it's really a great support system.
And you alluded to this earlier, and I know our dear friends Terrence and Tony are going to talk about it more. But the dynamic of working together as a team,
Absolutely,
and having that, I almost call it like it's the backbone in myeloma, and getting that empowerment and strength when you learn from others and you can share those little tidbits that might have helped you along the way with someone else. it makes you feel good because you're helping others to not feel alone.
That's amazing. I mean, right there, you've highlighted so many elements of support groups. I mean, just purely getting information, learning the nuances that people have had in their experience, developing a sense of community, gaining support, and helping others. And I know, and knowing the two of you, I'd never want to fight with the two of you, or your fighters group. I know that you guys are tough. I wouldn't mess with you, but it's marvelous to have that kind of approach and attitude. And I think that's helpful, hopefully, to our audience who may have kind of a traditional view of what support groups might mean. You know, one of the things I can tell you as a myeloma doctor is that my patients, when they go to support groups, it is really remarkable. They come back with extraordinary questions. They come back with insights. They come back with hope that they might not have had. And so I strongly encourage people to go to support groups. But the question number 3 for maybe Robin in particular, but of course, feel free to jump in too, Michael, is, well, who else can come to a support group? I think sort of people have in their mind that it's kind of just got to be the patient. But Robin, you've talked about how the support group has helped you. So maybe you can shed light on that part.
Yeah, so support groups are for anyone and everyone. So in addition to the patient, we have this community, right? You have your care partner, maybe you have family, maybe you have friends that are supporting you and trying to figure out, well, what is this myeloma and how could I help my friend or family member? And it's also for healthcare people in the community because they actually want to come to myeloma support groups, especially if it's a very local or a rural group. And if myeloma is only 2% of all cancers, then we think about the general hemoncs and nurse practitioners and all the good people out there helping to support us in the myeloma community. They may not have a big amount of myeloma patients in their practice because it's only 2% of all cancers. So the more that we can educate the entire communities and bring in key speakers, and now with virtual support groups, we have the ability to bring in nurses from all over the country virtually to speak, doctors, even the pharma world. We have all the industry partners coming in to talk about their drugs, their pipeline. So it's truly a huge community of people that are in a support group.
And through the years, we've had many family members, parents of patients. Everyone's welcome. Anyone that's part of your support system is welcome.
Mm-hmm.
That's marvelous. And thank you both for highlighting that. And also, Robin, frankly, for highlighting the fact that even a strategy we have at the IMF, and I know at Memorial Sloan Kettering, is we can help educate the community through support groups. It's amazing how much patients can bring to their doctors these days, and always done in a respectful manner, of course. But I think of one of our founders, Susie Dury, who you referenced earlier, Michael, that she was always the one who said, we could do it respectfully, but we should bring questions to our doctors. We should be able to be empowered to say, well, why are you giving me this treatment? And why is this happening? And that's one of the things that I think that support groups do, is they not only educate, but empower individuals to ask questions and also to ask the right questions. Well, time's going quickly, but I got 2 quick final questions for you. And I'll mention them together because I know that they're very much connected. I know that today our focus is New York, although I know we have people from all over the planet chiming in, but where are there support groups in the New York region, and where can people learn more about finding a support group, even if they're not in the New York region?
Yeah, absolutely. So important. And so on the imfmyeloma.org website, there is a page that is a map, and it's an interactive map. And you can put in your zip code, you can put in your city and state, and you'll see a listing of where are all of these local support groups. But again, because support groups are so virtual today, meeting virtually via Zoom, you can see wherever they are in all of the US and see what fits with your schedule. But also, when I think of the tri-state area, we've got such excellent groups, one in White Plains, Westchester area that's been around for many, many years, that was started by a dear friend of ours, Mike Katz, who now this group has been going on for so many more years. And then Philadelphia and Central New Jersey, and our group, of course, in Connecticut. And Orange County. Orange County is a really rural area in New York, and there's an excellent resource there. And Buffalo. Now we're talking northern in the state, right? But there is a member of the Buffalo, New York group that has been contacting the IMF. Her name is Kathy, and she is going out and taking all kinds of flyers and publications and information, and she's going to barber shops and communities and pharmacies and health fairs and getting the word out. It's about awareness. It's about, like you said, Dr. Joe, looking at these signs and symptoms so you can, maybe when you're going into your local appointment, you could say, hey, doc, I've had this and I've seen it with some sign and symptoms that look similar to multiple myeloma. Do we need to do some tests there? So support groups are so beneficial, and thank you for giving us the time to talk about it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for joining me and to allow the audience to see this a little bit more. We're going to show a slide here that gives the map of the country that people can, as you mentioned, in an interactive way, go to support.myeloma.org. You know, our website, of course, is myeloma.org, but we have this specific section. You can see all those red dots. There's over 150 support groups in the country, and you can go in and type in your zip code, and it'll pull up a support group that's close to you. And I really appreciate the comment that someone sent into us just now saying, yes, I agree. I am so glad I found a support group. I met so many friends, and now we are all in this together. So that's just remarkable, that kind of comment. And thank you for the individual who sent that to us, because I really do think we are in this together. Thank you again, Robin and Michael, for joining me. And I will just quickly comment as we transition now that if you do have questions, please use that Q&A button. I see a whole series of questions have come in. So we're a couple minutes behind, but we're doing all right. We're still going to get time to answer the questions, but not until we hear from the man. So who is the man? Well, I'm